get support, financing.
Our supporters have been really generous, but they've been doing this 2 years, so it's a lot to do.
Basically,
Campaign takes a lot of money to run. So.
what?
You want to sit here because you're going first?
Oh, yeah?
It doesn't matter, but you want to sit by next.
They're off. They were turned off.
I just left it down there. Whoop, whoop. So, how do we speak into the microphone? Or
Oh yes, I think it should reach you.
could I just speak louder?
Can you hear now? If you speak like this?
Really? Can everyone hear me? Testing 1, 2, 3. Yeah.
Sarah, who goes first? Me or you?
You go first, and then me.
And last her. You first.
Oh, good.
Who's going to do that first?
First Laura, then me, then Steve.
Okay.
Then questions.
Every time? 1 minute? Okay.
So you try to get somebody to do it?
Yes.
She's doing it for me. I did.
Okay, great. Gonna get dry here, so I'm just gonna think some more.
You're all sitting with this, right?
Yeah.
You're all sitting with this?
Yes, we distribute that, right?
Mhm. This is the first one.
That's better. More or less, there is AP, African Post, Fox News, media, Times, you can see like this. Let me see. I thought it was right, no? Yeah, I think you guys have got that there. Some of them change their views. But they introduce themselves from the
Let me ask questions.
Yes.
Just-
Yes. Good afternoon. My name is Gianpaolo Pioli. I'm the president of ANCA, the United Nations Correspondent Association. This is a press conference that is organized with the help of Talal, but mostly because our guests are so kind to travel from California to attend this press conference. The reason is that they're part of the movement Free the Hikers, and the real reason is that Joshua Fatal, that is 29, and Shane Bauer, they're still in jail in Iran. They were there, cut there exactly almost 2 years, 31st of May, I think, 2009, and we expect a sentence on the 31st of July 2011. And there is hope that something happened in a month, but this hope was back and forth for a long time, and Sarah was with them for more than 1 year. She was kind of liberated 9 months ago, and she participated in this campaign. Her boyfriend is still there. Last time that they had a phone call was May 22nd, They were able to speak with them. Since then, nothing, except this news that there will be a trial and probably a sentence in a month. Here with me is Sarah Short on my left, Laura Fatal, that is the mother of Joshua Fatal, Alex Fatal, that is the brother of Joshua, and Cindy Hekig, that is the mother of Shane Bauer. And I'll be very brief. You know the story. You don't know that they start, the two mothers, they start an hunger strike many days ago in conjunction with the strike of the two sons there, and they're continuing to do so here in the States. And this is a moment to, to focus again the attention to this subject that was kind of, abandoned for a while, but not for them. And I would be very brief and then finish practically because everybody knows the story. The resume was given to you, and Laura will start with a brief statement. Sarah will be the next, and Cindy would be the other one to just open up the floor, and we're open for question and answer.
Thank
Laura,
you
you're
so
welcome.
much. Thank you. Good morning, good afternoon, actually. My name is Laura Fatal, and I am Josh Fatal's mom. Josh is an environmental educator and advocate, and he was visiting Shane and Sarah in Damascus when they went on a trip to Kurdistan, Iraqi Kurdistan. Yesterday afternoon, we met with the Secretary General of the UN, Mr. Ban Ki-moon, who called the detention of Shane and Josh totally unacceptable. He promised to continue to urge Iran to finally live up to its promises of justice and compassion and release Josh and Shane immediately and unconditionally. Today, we also submitted a letter to the UN Special Rapporteur on Human Rights in Iran, Ahmed Shahid, urging him to investigate the illegal detention of our sons and seek their immediate release by the Iranian authorities. The UN Committee on Arbitrary Detention has already ruled that the conditions of Josh and Shane are being held are arbitrary and unjust, and we have a request for an investigation pending with the UN's Special Rapporteur on Torture. Our letter to Mr. Shahid details the cruel and arbitrary treatment that Josh and Shane have had to endure. It is available on our website that has been available since this terrible detention. It is www.freethehikers.org, and we have copies of this letter here for you. Tomorrow, Josh and Shane begin their 700th day and their 24th month of detention in Iran. Their unjust imprisonment has been devastating to our families, and most importantly, to their lives, which hold so much promise, Josh being 29, Shane being 28. It is clear to the world that Josh and Shane are completely innocent, but the cruelest part of this ordeal is that Iran knows that Josh and Shane are innocent and that it is just a cynical move to keep holding them. These interrogators even told them that they were innocent when the investigation ended 20 months ago. Why would a nation like Iran, with such a rich history and tradition, lower itself to playing politics with two young people it knows are innocent? I have no good answer to that question. What I do know is that the people responsible for holding Josh and Shane are embarrassing Iran in front of the entire world. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Laura. I'm Sarah Shord. Shane Bauer is my fiancé, and Laura's son, Josh Fatal, is a very close friend of mine. I was detained with them nearly 2 years ago and released 9.5 months ago on $500,000 bail after 410 days of solitary confinement. Nothing could have prepared us for the day that we were detained by Iranian soldiers somewhere along the border of Iran and Iraqi Kurdistan. We suddenly found ourselves in a terrifying, hostile situation in which we had no rights, no friends, didn't speak the language, and we were immediately treated like unwanted intruders. Everything we had known up until that point, our plans for the future, our homes, jobs, all of our possessions, even the clothes on our backs, were taken from us in one fell swoop. We lost all contact with our families, friends, and all ties to the outside world were immediately severed. It was like a wrecking ball. It hit our lives that day and shattered them into 1,000 pieces. 2 years later, Shane and Josh are still in prison, and their conditions in prison are deplorable. Being trapped in a small cell for more than 23 hours a day, having to sleep with a shirt tied around your eyes because the lights are never turned off, being forced down the stairs, being beaten by an angry guard, being denied any semblance of due process or even a private meeting with their lawyer, having no contact with your family except for 5-minute phone call roughly every 8 months. These conditions constitute white torture. They would be difficult for anyone to bear even for a day or a week. Now imagine 2 years. Holding 2 innocent people in prison due to their nationality is unconscionable. On top of that, Shane and Josh are 2 people who have long records standing on the side of oppressed people, from South Africa to Palestine. Shane, my fiancé, is a brilliant investigative journalist and a photographer who had been traveling and working in the Middle East and Africa for almost a decade, uncovering stories critical of war and occupation. Josh is a devoted environmentalist and an incredible teacher who has also traveled around the world from Guatemala to China, teaching and leading workshops on sustainable technology. Shane and Josh are the type of people that any nation should applaud, not punish. I know what it feels like to have my freedom taken from me. And now, 10 months after my release, I know what it feels like to have 2 people I love still locked away. I know what it's like to fear for their safety every day and not be able to do anything to help them. That wrecking ball, it didn't just hit Shane and Josh and I. It hit our families. It hit everyone that we've known, our friends, our neighbors, tens of thousands of people around the world who are outraged by the injustice that is still being done to them. Shane and Josh have both used their short, beautiful lives so far to build bridges across cultures, continents, and ideologies. That's why we were in the Middle East in the first place. Now Shane and Josh need those same bridges more than ever. They're desperately waiting for a bridge to cross that will lead them to freedom and that will bring them home. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. My name is Cindy Hickey, and I am the mother of Shane Bauer. Shane is a freelance journalist who was living in Damascus at the time of his trip to Kurdistan. For nearly 2 years, my son and Josh, his roommate at UC Berkeley, have been forced to endure systemic isolation, including our families. That is psychological torture. They have had to go on hunger strikes several times to receive letters and books from us and to protest against their conditions. They have also suffered instances of physical abuse, and sexual harassment from prison guards. There is absolutely no good reason for any of this. It is time for this madness to end. Iran has denied the Swiss embassy regular consular access to Shane and Josh to make sure that they are well. In fact, the last consular's visit was in October of 2010. But today we call on Iran to release Shane and Josh into the care of the Swiss embassy in Tehran for the month leading up to the final hearing in their case on July 31st, 2011. Iran has permitted this in the case of other foreign nationals, and it is only fair and reasonable to do so in this case as well. We are praying that the next hearing will mean freedom at last for Shane and Josh, because there is no justification for them to be in jail. We are not the only ones who expect Iran to do the right thing. Archbishop Desmond Tutu and other Nobel laureates, including Mareed Maguire and Jose Ramos Horta, have called for their immediate release. Prominent Muslims, such as Muhammad Ali, Yusuf Islam, and various Muslim organizations, have appealed for Islamic compassion. Statesmen like His Excellency Ban Ki-moon have also made appeals. So far, these calls have fallen on deaf ears in Iran. Today, we appeal again to world leaders and anyone in a position to help Shane and Josh to intervene with the Iranian authorities and convince them to follow through, at long last, with their promises of justice and compassion. Thank you, and we'll be happy to answer questions.
The floor is yours if you introduce yourself for them. So.
Evelyn Leopold. Why do you think they picked you up? It's obviously the color of your passport. Is there any retaliation for anything the U.S. has locked up any Iranians in Iraq? Or, I mean, what is your theory of why they're doing this? Because it obviously makes no sense.
Well, there's absolutely no transparency. We hear conflicting things. We've heard many positive statements from Iranian authorities that give us hope, but it often feels like false hope because we think we're at the end of this and then another chapter begins. I have no idea why they picked us up or why they held us. I have no direct information. But we do know that there have been statements. Their chief of human rights, Javad Laranjani, made a statement right after my release saying that I was released because they convinced the judiciary I was incapable of espionage, which is, of course, true, and Shane and Josh are completely incapable as well. They don't know a word of Farsi. We had no equipment, nothing on us that should be in any way suspicious. And I wasn't even wearing the proper clothing for a woman to wear, which is mandatory in Iran. The first thing the soldiers had to do is stop in the nearest town when they forced us into their jeep and drove us into Iran, and they bought me a headscarf before they could take me to the police station. So it was clear to them from the first moment that we were just tourists and we had no intention to come to Iran.
Jonathan Wattel with Fox News. It's been 2 years now. What lessons have you learned about geopolitics, about negotiating, about perhaps stubbornness, whatever you want to share? Perhaps each of you could answer this in trying to gain their release, and what do you think it's going to take to break the impasse?
Well, I can start.
Yeah.
Going back to September of 2009, we heard that the case would be treated with maximum leniency and expeditiously. And here we are 22 months later, and that hasn't happened. The promises of compassion, justice, mercy, they've been empty so far. So I think we've grown a bit jaded. At the same time, we have total confidence in and knowledge in Josh and Shane's innocence. And I think the point is that what is going on is really bringing great shame to the Islamic Republic of Iran. We met with Ban Ki-moon yesterday, and he was clear that this is something that is only bringing shame on Iran vis-a-vis the international community. I don't know if I've answered your question, but...
Yes, well, it's been a very long journey. We are not diplomats. We had no experience at all in running a campaign, an international campaign, nor did we ever expect we would have to do so. We are very, very grateful for the numerous humanitarians that have come to our defense, and we think perhaps that echoes and emboldens our voice even more, that people like Ingrid Betancourt, people like Ella Gandhi, women like Maureen Maguire, or Nobel Prize winners that you've heard about, have all come out. It just supports and echoes, as I say, the family's plight. And so if you had any questions at all about the seriousness of the innocence of Josh and Shane, these people have stood behind us, and we personally believe that is very powerful.
CSK News. I listened to your kind of a resume that 10 years in Middle East and you've been involved in many humanitarians and all these things. Within that, you've been there 10 years. You know the governments over there, they're all dictators. Why on earth you choose to go vacationing in a border which is war? And, I mean, where were you?
Yeah, that's a very good question. We unfortunately were given the wrong impression and the wrong information. When we were in the city of Salaminiya, I mean, I'm sure you know that northern Iraqi Kurdistan, is often referred to as the other Iraq because it is a safe place and it has a burgeoning tourist industry. It has its own borders. The three of us, Shane and I, were living in Damascus. I was teaching Iraqi and Palestinian refugees. I'm an English teacher, and Shane was practicing journalism. And we went through Turkey into northern Iraq. We'd had several friends that had traveled there before, and they raved about how beautiful the mountains were, how amazing Kurdish culture is. Actually, my Arabic teacher himself was Kurdish, and he was from northern Iraq, and he said, "Oh, you should go there, it's wonderful." He recommended it to me. So the visas that we were issued on the Turkish border with Iraqi Kurdistan were only for Iraqi Kurdistan, and we had no intention ever of leaving it because we knew that it was dangerous and that it would take a completely different strategy. You know, it's a different country in a lot of ways, a different culture anyway. So we arrived in the city of Salaminiya, and we got this recommendation to go to Ahmed Awa from the hotel manager, the restaurant manager, taxi driver. Everyone we spoke to in Salaminiya said it was the best place to hike and it was safe. We took a taxi there, and there were hundreds of tourists there, Kurdish families, eating and playing and listening to music, and that's where we camped, near the waterfall. No one mentioned to us, we were absolutely not warned, and no one mentioned that we were anywhere near the border of Iran. We knew it was in the general direction that we were hiking in the next day, but we thought it was many, many miles away. And the only mistake that we might have made is that we hiked too far. We assumed that if we were anywhere near a border, we would see it, it would be demarcated, and there was absolutely no indication of a border. That's all I can say. To this day, I don't know where the border is because it's entirely unmarked, and I don't know exactly where it is.
Please.
Free Press. Have you made any attempt to ask President Obama, although of course we don't have very much leverage with Iran, needless to say, but to at least speak out publicly and bring this back to the public consciousness and use his bully pulpit to urge other nations that might have better relations with Iran to put pressure for the release of these folks?
Actually, President Obama has made a statement. I can't quote the date, but he has made a public statement, and he actually referred to Shane, Josh, and Sarah as the best of America, the best of the youth of America. You know, what our U.S. government does, we don't have privy to. You know, we're being told that they're doing their work, they're working hard. This is a difficult situation. There's no relation between the U.S. government and Iran, so we have the protecting power of the Swiss helping us. But he has made statements, and again, our job as families is to really push the humanitarian side of this. The bottom line, in my mind, is this should not be political. Shane and Josh are innocent. They need to be released. It's very unfair. So I'm an ethical person. I've raised my children to be ethical. I wish this were handled in an ethical way. And what the government does, we have no control over.
Thank you, Mr. President. Richard Roth, CNN. If you could speak up, because the audio in this room is atrocious. Can Sarah or anyone else respond? The plight of you and then Josh and Shane, sort of big news early on. Now we have unprecedented developments, the Arab Spring, revolution, turmoil, throughout the region, every single country. What's been the impact, in a way, because the plight of these two men has kind of moved off the front pages? There's not four of them, there's not a group of them like the 1979 hostages. I wonder if you could talk about the effect of that and how you see the coverage, perhaps, of their plight.
Yeah, well, we're very lucky to have, we have supporters all over the world that haven't forgotten about Shane and Josh, and that's what keeps us going every day. We know that's what keeps Shane and Josh going. We do think it's important to keep it's crucial to keep their story alive, and we ask all of you today to help us with that. That's why we're here. As far as other events going on in the Middle East and the Arab Spring, it's impossible to say how global events are affecting Shane and Josh, if at all. But it is true that there are many important stories to cover, and that's why we are even more grateful that people are still paying attention to our story and have not forgotten about Shane and Josh.
I would just add that we are using social media and other tools to maintain awareness. Today, a photograph of our meeting with Ban Ki-moon was uploaded to our Facebook page, and that's another way that we stay active and involved. We have a Facebook page of over 27,000 people.
Sarah mentioned some contact. I think Sarah had mentioned some contact with our Iranian officials. I was just wondering, how are you contacting Iranian officials? Is it here in New York and Washington? Is it on the phone? And will the families be going? Will they be allowed to go to Iran for the trial, or you don't know how that happens? And how long will that take? I would just say that when we send letters to the Iranian authorities, we go through the UN mission here in New York. And we have not been invited to go to the trial on July 31st. However, we are open to the idea that if Josh and Shane would be released and they invite us to go to the trial, I think Cindy and I would be very thrilled to go.
I would also just briefly add that all of the statements the one that I referred to, these are public statements. Iranian authorities, from President Ahmadinejad to their Chief of Human Rights, Javad Laranjani, and their Foreign Minister, have made many public statements that are positive indications for Shane and Josh, and we're waiting to see those come to fruition.
I noticed that you're all wearing necklaces. I'd like to know the significance of the necklaces, and also you mentioned that you have social media and all these other outlets. How can the public help? So it's a two-part question.
Okay. I'll just do the necklace part, and then maybe Alex and others will do the social media part. One of Josh's friends, Sarah Taylor, actually designed this necklace a few months ago, maybe even a year ago at this point, and it says "Free the Hikers." And so Sarah, one of these friends sent this necklace when she designed it to me, and then when Sarah's mother, Nora, and Cindy, Shane's mom, and I all went to Tehran May 2010, we all wore these, and this is our kind of solidarity necklace, hoping that all three will be free.
They're also available on the website. A lot of our supporters wear them, and I'll meet a new supporter for the first time and see them wearing it. It's very touching.
Yeah. So the social media,
I would just say, the Facebook page is the locus of organization where we have events around the world. It's generally being organized on our Facebook page. We're also very active on Twitter. We have a YouTube channel where Sarah has a song that they composed in prison in a piece of time. We have a video, Free Shane and Josh, an urgent appeal for compassion. So we're very active online.
There's also a section on the Free the Hikers website, a support section, that offers many things that people personally can do. The most important thing is we need awareness. We need the word out. So to get people to the website and to, there's letters that can be signed, a petition that can be signed, all those sorts of things. Thank you.
Yeah. Alex mentioned the documentary. I just want to make a strong pitch for that. It's a very powerful documentary, and it's available on our website, and we're trying to get people to show it at universities, schools, community centers across the country, and that's available on our website, freethehikers.org.
Kalan.
We understand you're fasting. Can you tell us more about your fasting and what you're trying to achieve? And also can tell us about the fasting by Josh and Shane in prison. We understand they also were fasting for about 17 days non-stop. And financially speaking, you are going around trying to spread the word. How do you raise funds for your campaign to keep Shane and Josh in the eyes of the world?
Well, Sarah has told us, and she can maybe speak to this, but Shane, Josh, and Sarah, before she got released, fasted many times. Laura and I started the fast. It's a rolling hunger strike. And to stand in solidarity with Shane and Josh. Now, when I got a call from Shane, in the 3 minutes I got to talk to him, one of the things he told me is they had stopped giving them letters, which you can imagine the letters from us mean everything to them. And they had to fast 17 days this last time just to get letters and books. So we're standing in solidarity with them. We've had many people also stand with us. It's a rolling hunger strike, so it's been passed on. All of us up here have hunger struck at certain times. Laura and I have been hunger striking again for days. The bottom line is we want to keep this up until Shane and Josh are home. I want my son home, and that's the main reason I'm hunger striking.
Shane and Josh and I went on hunger strike 4 times while I was still in prison, and we don't know how many times since I left almost 10 months ago. It's the only recourse you have to protest your conditions, and Shane and Josh's conditions are deplorable. The first time we hunger struck was as soon as they separated us and threw us into separate cells, after which we didn't see each other for nearly 3 months. We agreed beforehand that we would immediately hunger strike, and at that point I think it was 6 days, and after 6 days of hunger striking, I could barely walk across the room without having to sit down because my heart would just be beating, pounding in my chest. So I have no idea how Shane and Josh could have gotten through 17 days without taking any sustenance whatsoever. It shows how extreme their isolation is and how deep their desperation is.
Talking about hunger, if I may follow up. The court case is on the 31st of July. On the 1st of August is Ramadan.
Yeah.
Now, if they don't take decisions on the 31st of August, they don't usually do anything in Ramadan in the Middle East. Everything goes, especially government, courts and stuff. What do you think will happen? I mean, are they going to take a decision the same day, or are they going to just have one session and then a whole month wait for the... I mean, what's going to happen?
Well, I'm glad you brought it out very much, Halal. The reason we renewed our hunger strike was that on May 11th, Josh and Shane were supposed to be brought to court in Tehran. They had been in court February 6th, and they were in court for 4.5 hours. They wrote and they spoke. However, their lawyer, their independent Iranian lawyer, Mr. Masoud Shafi, was not allowed to defend them at that time. So at the end of that 4.5 hours of being in the courtroom, I remember they taped it, and the Press TV has taped it, and it's available for everyone to see. I remember I heard Josh say, and so they said, well, we have to have a second session of this. And so I remember hearing Josh say, well, is that tomorrow, February 7th? And so there was no answer at that moment. And so we were waiting and waiting, thinking any day the next session would be. And then we get an announcement, it's May 11th. So all of the families were very, very eager. May 11th, we're looking forward to it. And then it must have been a decision 6 hours before May 11th. And it was postponed for no reason given at all. And so then we were so distraught. We thought the judicial system would do its work and show the innocence of Josh and Shane, and we would then be thrilled and they would come home. So that devastation of not having that court session provoked us, and then with a phone call coming May 22nd, hearing they had a hunger strike for their letters yet again, we said we must do something. So we then began our hunger strike.
If I could just jump in, just the devastation that we've felt all along has really reached new depths. This May 11th non-appearance was the second time that they were not brought from the prison to the courtroom for no reason, no explanation given. So we've been promised a final hearing, and there have been reports that there would be a verdict and a resolution that same day. Our lawyer tells us that it's very common for resolutions to happen the same day of the trial. So we are waiting and hoping for Iran to do the right thing. Now, just very quickly on this issue of prison conditions. You know, we've mentioned the 17-day hunger strike just to get letters. And if that doesn't give you a sense of their isolation, let me just add an incident that Sarah came forward with recently, which was there was incidents of physical abuse. Josh being forced down a stairwell. Shane then crying out for Josh, not wanting to be separated, and then having his head essentially hit against the wall, bashed against the wall to the point that he was bleeding in the back of his head. So there's been physical abuse, there's been psychological torture, and what we're coming forward with today is there have also been incidents of sexual harassment, of a man coming to their cell at night saying lewd things through the door, and we know the history of sexual assault in a Wien prison, and we worry very intensely about what they are facing on a daily basis. They are not fine. They are not safe where they are. They need to be released. Here we are calling on Iran to release them to the Swiss. If they are unable to grant the Swiss regular consular access as the Vienna Convention stipulate, they should in the very least allow them to await trial in the Swiss embassy as they have done with other foreign nationals. So they should be released to the Swiss immediately so we can speak with them regularly leading up to their final trial and we can verify their well-being.
We've all heard some very touching and moving things that you're doing, the Facebook, the hunger strikes, all this outreach that you're trying to do to drum up interest, but why has the State Department and the U.S. administration, why has the government failed you? What explanation do you have, or have they indeed failed you? What have they done right? What have they done wrong? As I asked earlier, what is it going to take? You know, you can do all these things which are, you know, impressive and commendable, but I don't understand what the people who actually have the power in this country are doing on your behalf.
Well, ultimately, we all know that the decision lies with the Islamic Republic of Iran to make this decision. They'll be the ones to release Shane and Josh. They released me. I was shown Islamic compassion. The judge told me that I was released because I'm a woman and because I was in solitary confinement. That sets a very strong precedent for Shane and Josh. That being said, this is an international effort. We all know that our detention has not even political undertones, it has political overtones. It has everything to do with 30 years of animosity between our country and Iran. And because of that, Shane and Josh are still there. And because of that, we've really needed to reach out to countries all around the world. And the Omani government was very crucial in negotiating and advocating for my release. They're still very involved in advocating for Shane and Josh, and many other countries are too. Turkey, Brazil, Senegal, many countries around the world have stepped up to the plate, and it's an international effort that's going to bring Shane and Josh home.
So what about specifically the United States, the U.S. government, the State Department? What has their role been so far, and what have they done that's right, and what is not enough in your estimation?
That's really not where we're putting our efforts. You know, as Sarah has said, you know, voices like Ban Ki-moon, voices like Muhammad Ali, this is really where we're focusing our attention. The appeals that Muhammad Ali has made to Supreme Leader Ayatollah Khamenei, very moving appeals. I don't know if you've read the letters, but they're perhaps the most touching letters that of all the hundreds and thousands of letters that have been sent over the last 700 days or 699 days. It has been the most moving. So we're trying to make clear that this is not a political issue. We want this taken out of the U.S.-Iran mess because it is such a mess. It has nothing to do with politics. It's a humanitarian issue, and it's an urgent humanitarian issue.
Mr. Vittel, and I can understand you correctly then, you're saying you've given up faith in using what most of us would think the normal process, that the State Department and the U.S. government would campaign heavily on your behalf and release your brother and his friend? Is it that the impasse between the two countries is just so intense that you've given up completely on normal politics, geopolitics here?
They continue to work with the Swiss protecting power in Iran, and I'm going to leave it at that.
Anyone else there willing to address that?
No, again, as Alex stated, they do continue their work. We are not privy, as I said earlier, to what that work is. They don't share that with us. So, and our work is so intense that it takes up every bit of our time. When Shane and Josh are home, I'll say that everyone's done their work, including us. Until then, we all need to keep working as hard as we can.
And we're constantly calling on our government and many governments to do more. And nothing is enough until Shane and Josh are home. We have our humble grassroots campaign we're living on a shoestring. We're living off the generosity of our supporters and our friends, and people have dug very deep to sustain us, and they continue to. But 2 years is a very long time to sustain our campaign, and we're very fortunate that enough people continue to contribute to our campaign to keep it going. Through
Yes.
the website, yeah. There's a place you can make donations and tax-deductible donations as well.
Yeah. And there is a lot of support. I mean, people. I'm from Minnesota. I don't have a place to stay here, so friends have been generous to let us stay, in places. And this has been very financially stressful on all three families personally also. My business of 18 years, very successful, is closed indefinitely. It's been closed for a year, and businesses can't stay closed forever without stopping completely. I know that Laura also has taken a break from her career, and it's affected all of us. Our husbands are out there working. That's keeping the bills paid at home, but it's very stressful, very stressful. We're spending more money, we're making less money.
Next to, of course, having to leave prison without Shane and Josh, which is something I never imagined that I would have to do, is to walk through the prison doors alone and leave them behind me. Next to that, the most difficult thing has been to come out and see the toll that it's taken on our families. Shane's sister has an illness that's related to the stress of having her brother in prison. As Cindy pointed out, businesses have been closed. It's just taken a huge toll on everyone's lives. And that's one of the most difficult things that Shane and Josh are going to have to confront when they get out as well. It's going to be a long time before we all can actually pick up and move on with our lives, but we're definitely ready to start the healing, and we can't do it without Shane and Josh.
Much of the campaign says no one's free till all three are free. And when Sarah left prison, as she just described, Josh said to her, "We're 1/3 free."
And I think we all feel that way. We're all waiting for that day of freedom, so we can start our healing process and we can move forward. And I know that I have faith that Shane, Sarah, and Josh are going to move forward in a real good and strong way, as we are. All three of them have done many good things for the world. We need them to continue that work.
Did you feel the Iranian government knew about your activities? I mean, you have been a peace activist for many years. You have demonstrated against occupation of Iraq. Were they aware of your history? Did they tell you that they know who you are, and Shane and Josh? I'm just wondering.
Yes, definitely. Shane, Josh, and I are all three peace activists. We met doing similar work in the San Francisco Bay Area. Shane and I met protesting the war in Afghanistan and Iraq. And that's why Shane and I went to the Middle East, and that's why Josh came to visit us, because I wanted to work with refugees, and Shane wanted to continue doing journalism that he's been doing for nearly a decade. Shane is fluent in Arabic, and which is something he's obviously worked extremely hard for, so that he can talk to the people that he writes about in their own language. The investigators after they know everything about us. I mean, we gave them our email accounts, our Skype accounts. I probably wrote 500 pages of information about every detail of my life, and so did Shane and Josh. And 2 months into the investigation, my investigator came in. He said, "Sarah, I'm sorry, but the investigation, I've been told to put it on hold." And I said, "What does that mean?" And he said, "Well, it means we're not going to be coming to ask you any more questions. I don't know when I'm going to see you again." And I said, "Does that mean we're going to court, we're going to be freed, we're going home?" And he said, "No, I'm sorry, but your case has become political. And even though I know that you're innocent, I have no idea what's going to happen to you." And this is what my investigator said to me. And many times we talked about our work as peace activists and our work in the Middle East and back in the U.S. And my investigators applauded us for our work. And they said, "I'm so sorry. Of all people, you're caught up in this situation." When I met with President Ahmadinejad in New York with my mother shortly after my release, and he congratulated my mother and I gave him a thick stack of everything that I've ever published and Shane and Josh have ever published, and a lot of information about our work as journalists, teachers, environmentalists, and peace activists. And he said, I know, you're good kids." He said, "I hope you and Shane are married very soon, and you have many children." And he also agreed to pass on this recommendation to the judiciary to treat our case with leniency and expediency. And this was almost 10 months ago. So what we don't understand is why haven't these recommendations, if they have indeed, we'd like to believe they've been passed on, but why we haven't seen any results. And now we have a court date on July 31st, and it is the greatest hope and prayer that we share with so many countless people around the world. This will be the end of this nightmare for Shane and Josh and for all of us.
Please don't get me wrong. If I were you, I would not go back for the trial. But do you think by not going back, would you hurt the trial? Would you jeopardize those two?
I've already publicly made it clear that I'm not going back for the trial. I've been diagnosed with post-traumatic stress, and my clinical psychologist has said that if I go back, I risk permanent psychological damage. And I know that Shane and Josh would not want me to do that, so I'm not going back.
But also the Iranian press just recently came out and said that Sarah was not required to return.
Our lawyer, Mr. Masood Shafi, has received the formal notification of the court date, and it makes no mention of wanting Sarah to be there. So that is not an issue at this point.
Also, from Iranian press just recently, they mentioned how they hope this is the final court date. So we like that word.
Yes, and with this, hoping that this will be also the final months of your campaign until the 31st of July, and work strong, and we're all hopeful that it's going to be for the best for Joshua.
Everything we do, every letter we write, every press conference, we say, we hope this is the last one. God willing, we won't have to do this again. No.
And thank you very much for coming to share with us your experience. Okay, thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
One like this, but it's a dell. That's nice. It's like the attached to like the smaller ship for the mothership, just like the Somali pirates. I want to Why go? Because you go down to the Security Council and hang it out there. Exactly. That's what I
Okay,
used
I
to
could just
do.
keep this up, yeah, make sure. It's up to you.